right.
Yeah, hi, my name is Sarah Myers, and I've been an Indivisible member for a really long time, actually. Well, quite a while, like a year or more. I work with Diana a lot on some of the stuff we do on the Monday morning emails, etc. And I work in Adams 12 School District. As a school counselor, I'm kind of doing a special assignment at the moment, but I took this year off to do nonprofit work and to be with my 3-year-old son. Can't forget that part, who's not here, which is a good thing at the moment. But yeah, I'm working with Indivisible, doing work here, and I'm also working with Great Education Colorado that Dave mentioned. And Great Ed has been around for about 14 years, I believe. So they haven't just cropped up recently for Initiative 93. I want everyone to understand that. They have been fighting for a long time to try to improve school funding in Colorado. So the current Initiative 93 campaign, we're referring to it as Great Schools, Thriving Communities. So, you know, while I'm speaking and afterwards, if you feel like you want to be in the loop on how things are evolving with this, then I would really recommend you go to that website. It's greatschoolsthrivingcommunities.org. And you can join, and then you can get onto our emails. And also, my end game today is to see if anyone would like to take some petitions to help me collect signatures. My role right now is I'm the field manager for Senate District 17 and 18 for Great Ed and for this campaign. So we have somebody who's handling all the 35 Senate districts in the state to try to collect the required amount of signatures to get Initiative 93 on the ballot. And so in Senate District 17 and 18, we need around 3,000-ish in each district signatures to get it on the ballot. That's including a big buffer of signatures because a lot of our signatures turn out to be, not ours, but in general, turn out to be invalid for various reasons. So we're trying to get about 3,000, and we're about to do a huge count of the signatures on May 15th. And so we're trying to get people. We have, I think about 4,000 petitions circulating around the state at the moment for Initiative 93. So let me go ahead and talk a little bit more about it in detail. And it was a coalition of people that decided we needed Initiative 93. It wasn't just Great Ed saying, let's do this, but a number of groups have worked together since July of 2016, so almost like 2 years now. Civil rights groups, educational groups, you can see a few of them listed there. And really our true core values of all those organizations is getting more money into our schools, local control over the revenue. Initiative 93, all districts would get some of the money that it raises, and they could spend it how they want, which is great. I mean, sometimes, you know, an initiative says, you know, it needs to be for new facilities or to lower class sizes or this or that. Initiative 93 is going to let the districts spend the money how they need to. And then equitable and adequate distribution of the money. And so the basis of why we want more funding in our schools, we want an opportunity for all of our students, chances to succeed, and to help the Colorado economy, because that's where these students most likely will end up working. And probably many of you have seen how low we rank in our school funding. So we're 48th or 39th, depending on how you look at it.
And why is that again?
Tabor and Gallagher.
Oh, there you go.
Betsy DeVos.
Well,
Yeah.
that's a piece of it. There you
She'll
go.
probably make it worse, right? So the legislature has been skirting around Amendment 23 for a number of years, which was supposed to keep education spending up with inflation, but they've managed to get around it, and so we continue to underfund year after year after year. We continue to underfund our schools in Colorado.
If I could just stop.
Yeah.
That total amount, if you add up all those bars, that's about $6.7 billion lost to our public schools that I think taxpayers thought they were committing to our schools. The Supreme Court, Colorado Supreme Court, ruled that it was legal for the legislature to use this technique. It's called the negative factor or the budget stabilization factor. They don't like the acronym. BS factor, budget stabilization. You know, like the acronym, but we actually committed it to law now. We actually bought down this another $150 million for 18-19 on the Joint Budget Committee in the long bill, the budget bill. But we still are pulling out about $672 million again this year. So the number has now grown to $7.3 billion lost over 10 years. That's one full year of education funding gone out of the decade.
So does the money go somewhere?
Yeah,
It's
it's being diverted to other places in the budget. And remember, I said we have a hole in every aspect of the budget, okay? And we're required by Constitution, the Budget Committee is and the legislature is, to have a balanced budget. So if we don't have the revenue coming in, then we have to find a way to balance the budget. And this has been one, not the only, but one of the techniques that the legislature has used, even in a hot economy, to balance the budget.
And I have this up here partly because if you would like to help and take a petition around after the meeting, you might get people saying to you, well, didn't the legislature just commit $150 million this year? I mean, aren't they, adding back some of the money? But it's just a drop in the bucket of where we're really behind. So our per pupil funding, PPF, is just continuing to drop below the national average precipitously, as you can see. I'm not going to go into that too much. Another thing, I don't think Dave mentioned this yet, but teacher shortage. The number of people who are in teacher prep programs right now in the state is such a small number that it could, I think, only supply teachers to like Denver public schools. So it's a terrible problem, and there are schools that are having to recruit internationally to find people who will work because the salaries are really terrible in many areas. Not here. Where I work is pretty decent pay, but we're continuing to pass mill levies and things, right? So that's helping some of the areas in the Front Range, and I'll show you a map. And so, just like we mentioned, half the districts in Colorado, this stat really hit me hard. I mean, this was one of the ones that really stuck in my mind, like, what, are you serious? I did not know this. I had heard Oregon had a 4-day school week in some parts of their state a few years ago. And then I found out that Colorado, half of our districts have a school, at least one, that only has a 4-day school week. And I know people who are teachers who are like, oh, it's awesome, 3-day weekend every week. And, and I mean, maybe some people appreciate it, but the thing that concerns me the most is when you think about a first grader or a second grader, the capacity of their mind to learn, really, from 7:30 to 4:30, cramming, because they have to keep the same number of minutes of education, right? That's required by law. So they pack it all into 4 days instead of 5 days. It's just not effective. It's exhausting for kids.
Well, and I mentioned Pueblo 60 has actually had a strike vote, and they're the latest district. This is not just small rural districts. Pueblo 60 is going to a 4-day week. The one right before that was Brighton.
Yep, they just did it.
Yep. And you know what the talking point was? Well, if teachers only have to work 4 days in order to get their teaching work done, that just gives them a lot more time the rest of the week to have a second and third job so they can make enough money to survive. Really? That's the talking point?
They really had that as a...
Yeah, yeah.
And so at the moment, our tax code, we call it kind of an upside down code where, after earners of about, $80,000 and below, your tax rate you're paying less for education the more you make, which personally I don't think makes a lot of sense. Again, this is a map that shows how different districts are affected, how things are so inequitable in our state, and again, it's because certain communities are able to pass mill levies and continue to pay decent salaries, etc. So there's a huge disparity, diversity, inequity across the state.
Could you say something about how that works? Because the property tax from all counties goes to the state and it gets returned somehow, and where do the schools come into that?
I bet you Dave probably knows more, but let me give it a try.
Yeah.
Just that the per pupil funding that the state decides is hit in for every district. If the property values are higher in a community, then the property tax will help to reach that per pupil funding higher than a less affluent community. The general fund at the state has to fill in the gap between a community that hits up to here with their property tax and a community that hits up to here. But then the additional money can be voted in to help augment and increase the per pupil funding based on if a community just wants to put an initiative
Go back
forward.
one step for me. So does the Colorado Constitution require that the state collect but return all property tax to where it came from, or is that?
No.
Yeah, that's what Dave.
So we have basically what's called total program funding. And so we figure out through the budget process and through the School Finance Act that we pass every year, an amount per pupil that we're going to fund for every student in the state of
No, I
Colorado.
got that part.
And you saw we're way below national average on that amount. On a previous slide, it was a couple of $1,000s below national average, but we have this amount. Now, a local district can actually choose to go higher than that if they want. It's called a mill levy override, and Boulder has chosen to do
And that's
that.
property tax.
That's property tax. But we actually have, like, for example, the Aspen School District is sitting at 4 mills. Okay?
I don't know what that is relative
Okay.
to us.
Well,
What are we-
relative to my district, which is a very poor district, we're paying 27 mills. We're paying 6 times the amount of millage than Aspen is, because we don't have property assessed value up there like you can imagine Aspen
No idea.
does.
Okay.
Okay? And so what happens is we have this property tax ability to pay, and the state ends up backfilling whatever the locals can't provide to create this total program funding that we have for the state. Even though it's far below national average, we have a formula that we utilize in order to try to be able to do that. Way back before Tabor, it was kind of equal, 50-50. The state share and the local share was about equal, and everybody had about the same millage. It was actually at 40 mills. And what's happened with the collision of Tabor and Gallagher is that as assessed valuation has improved in some of these areas like Denver, Boulder, Aspen, some of these more rich assessed valuation, better assessed valuation districts, their mill levy has gone down, okay? And we finally froze everybody at one point a few years ago because it was just getting so far out of whack.
You mean for education, or mill levy specifically
Right.
for education?
Right.
And they are required by the Constitution to get all of their own back?
Well, and if they can't, then we backfill it as a state. What we used to have was, before
No,
Tabor.
I think
Why can't the state take money from the Aspen district, the Boulder district, and send
Oh,
some
no.
back?
So voters have to approve tax increases. The state can't do
No,
that.
I-
No.
I'm saying
Where does the property
redistribute.
tax go?
Why can't they redistribute the property tax a little more?
Well, it comes in and then we backfill it, but you can't force.
Where does it come into, the property tax? The
It
state
It goes,
or the-
it goes to the county, the counties
county.
bring,
County goes
you
to
pay
the
it to the county sends it to the state, as part of.
The whole thing?
The
or
whole
just the
thing.
school part?
The school mills come in.
Just the school mills?
Well, the things that are done at the county level stay at the county level or municipal level, okay? It is a pretty complicated process.
No, I'm with you.
And I know you're trying to figure it out, and I don't want to get
But
too
then there's
deep
that
into this.
basic question of, does the state have any ability to redistribute any of that? The
We
property tax money?
We
not
could,
general.
we could, and we're attempting to change the distribution formula
For the property tax?
for total program through this initiative as well. The dilemma we get into is that before Tabor, if Gallagher forced down the property tax in a particular district, the elected body, either a county or a school district or special district, could just choose to float that mill levy back up to keep the revenue stream the same. When Tabor came in, it said, you can't float that mill levy back up without a vote of the people.
Oh, okay.
And
I
that's
didn't know
where
that.
Tabor collides with Gallagher, because it requires a vote on every one of these things. So when you say, can we redistribute it, only with a vote of the people can we do that. And that's that collision of Tabor and Gallagher.
Another way to ask the same question, has anything been updated in terms of the distribution of the collected revenue from the 1993 School Refinance Act?
There's been tweaks, but interestingly, I ran a bill with support of 171 out of 178 superintendents who have been working on a new distribution formula for 3 or 4 years. It was House Bill 18-1232. I introduced it. It was a student-centered distribution formula. So how do we actually get this money back out to support each individual student?
So to interject in the discussion, we're basically operating under a 25-year-old way of distributing money around the state.
Both. We're operating under a 25-year-old restriction in our Colorado Constitution on how we can collect it, and a 25-year-old process and statute about how we distribute it back out to schools. None of it's working. None of it's working well.
That up as a retired public servant myself is the question that you're asking is a very good question.
It is.
Because the system, as you've indicated, David, is so old within the state. I mean, it's a quarter of a century old, and then Tabor and Gallagher has only gotten even worse since then.
Right. And you know, we ended up killing the bill, the superintendent's bill, in House Education Committee. And the reason is because people were going to monkey with the formula and actually try to apply it to our existing poor revenue stream, which was still going to continue to pit student against student. The resources are not adequate to make it work. And so it's kind of a two sides, you know, an old math teacher, there's two sides of the equation. You have to have adequate resources coming in order to provide equity in the way the money goes back out again, to ensure that each student has the right kind of resources to be successful.
Let me get
I don't know, we could really get into the weeds on this, but and I'm happy to do that, but I'm outside
Yeah,
of this.
and I don't want to keep people past 5:30 because we're busy. We all have other lives outside of here too. So Initiative 93 is going to be, and raise your hand again if you're pretty familiar with it. Pretty familiar, so 3, 4 of you. Okay, so it would be basically, there's 3 parts to it. First of all, it would be an income tax increase on people that make over $150K per year and up, graduated.
That's taxable income, not gross income.
Taxable income.
Yeah.
And I live here in Boulder, and I know there's a lot of money here, and when I heard it was only 8% of people in Colorado that earned that kind of income, I was pretty surprised. But that's all that it is. 8% of people would be affected, 92% would not be affected. It would even out the portion of people that people pay towards public schools depending on their income, so that it wasn't decreasing so much at the higher income levels. It would also increase taxes on C corporations, which are the largest types of corporations, and they're the ones that just got a big federal break a few months ago. And 44 states currently have their own state C corporation tax, and we are the 3rd lowest of all those states. And even with Initiative 93, we would still be the 9th lowest. So we're still would still have a very low corporate tax rate in Colorado. It does not, on the right side, it doesn't apply to S corporations or sole proprietorships or LLCs. And it is a big increase, but again, as I showed you previously, still keeps us very low compared to other states. This one, it's going to show again how much corporate tax is still only going to be 27% if we had Initiative 93. And so, we educational investments, I don't think I need to say this to you in the room, it's going to help increase employment income and spending in some industries in our state. So what does it do exactly? It raises $1.6 billion. Let me just hold it up. Here's my own personal one that I've been getting signatures on. This is not part of my job to get personal signatures. My job is to disseminate them. But it raises $1.6 billion for all the school districts in Colorado to get a slice of. They can spend it as they would like. It actually does provide funding for full-day kindergarten and increases early childhood education spending. It also expands, the federal government defines at-risk students as students who are on free and reduced lunch household income levels. Colorado only uses free lunch students right now as our at-risk definition, and we would increase that to include reduced lunch students as well. And it also does increase spending for kids with special needs, including gifted and talented kids, kids with an IEP, and ELL students. Sorry, this is my first time doing this presentation, so I just have to take a moment. And okay, so then the property taxes, I don't think we mentioned, but this actually, Initiative 93, a nice selling point is it will lower property taxes, literally lower them. Residential will go from 7.2 to 7, and non-residential from 29 to 24%. Excuse me. And that would help with the Gallagher Amendment with property tax rates constantly having to fluctuate. So we would freeze them, that way districts can know more about what's going to be coming in each year. And yeah, so this again is about the continual drop in residential assessment. So residential sales taxes is pressuring the general fund at the state to keep backfilling as the income from local property taxes continues to go down, the per pupil funding spending.
That was that, I talked about state share and local share for total program. So that's what these two lines, you can see the state share has been going up and up and up, and the local share has been going down, down, down since Tabor passed.
Because Gallagher makes us keep property taxes, residential and non-residential, to a certain proportion, right, Dave?
Right.
So that's, we also have many endorsements, and just to reiterate before, Great Education's been around for 14 years, and they've been trying all sorts of things, and this Great Schools Thriving Communities is the most recent attempt, and I do think it's a great initiative, and I would love to have any of you in the room who would like to take some petitions and get signatures on them, to take them sign them out with me today. May 15th is not the Secretary of State's office deadline for signatures, but we want to give ourselves a couple of months buffer to see how many signatures we have by then, and so that's what, in a week, is that about right? I forget what the date is, but the 6th, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, so if you want to take a petition, I would actually want to maybe ask you to take two, because the one that you start with, you can send it in or get in touch with. If you go to this website, you can sign up, and then it'll probably be me if you live in this part of Boulder or Senate District 1718. I would be the one who I could collect it from you. I can come and get it from you wherever you are. They do need to be notarized before we collect them. But I was going to say I would give you two, because one, I would want you to start collecting signatures as soon as you could, and send as many as you collected by May 15th. Even if your petition's not completed with 40 signatures, just get that to us so that we can count those signatures and validate those signatures, and then just continue on your way with your other petition that you have, so that you can keep on collecting beyond May 15th.
And is this just to get it on the ballot?
Just to get it on the ballot. Right. Yeah, so what questions can I answer for you?
So because of Amendment 71, the
Right.
requirement to get on the ballot
Is
2%
2%
in every Senate district?
in every
across
Senate
the entire
district,
state.
yes. And I thought it was 2% of residents, but not 2% of
Voters?
registered voters. There was a
Wow.
lawsuit recently because the last thing was about registered voters, and now it might be, it's too much, anyway.
Yeah,
2%.
I thought they somehow, I thought
And-
courts struck down the requirement.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
they
still-
did, but.
But there's a statute, a
They
stay,
stayed,
yes,
yeah,
there's a
they
stay.
Stay, but that was lifted.
Right.
The stay was lifted. So they're assuming Great Schools
Yeah.
Thriving Communities.org is assuming, is it .org or .com?
.org.
.org
That we have to
is
comply.
assuming that we're gonna have to comply
Yeah.
with the 2% in each of the 35 Senate districts
Yeah.
across the state. So they wanna count
And-
as of May 15th to see where they're at in each Senate district, so they know where to put their energies. They may already have met the threshold limit in certain Senate districts, and so they'll redouble their efforts out in others. But this is a grassroots effort to do this.
It's all volunteer petition carriers at the moment. We haven't paid anyone to collect signatures yet. We might have to, but we're hoping not.
And then in November, it has to pass by 55%.
55%, yep, that's right.
So
You know, it's a tall order, even though I think
back
it
up to
looks
the
so.
92 one though.
Oh, sure. Was it?
Go keep
No.
going.
Yeah.
There.
Mhm.
92% of the income tax filers will have no impact.
And when I go around, I can give you a teeny little petition or training, because I'm hoping some of you would take these. Especially if you're in a more wealthy area, I stay straight up. I say, so people making 150K and more will pay some more tax. And I say, and there's a lot of people in Boulder, probably people we've come across regularly that make that kind of money and more. And I say, but 150 people who make 150,000, it's $82 a year that they would be paying additional, and then it goes up from there.
But the last time I did vote counting in an election, I think 92 beats 8. Just saying.
So
If you get the message out, and just like Phil talked about,
right.
there's going to be a ton of money spent against an initiative like this by the people that make a lot of money. But these are the kind of conversations across the back yard fence with your neighbors about what do you really value? How do we invest in ourselves as a state? Do you value your public schools, and what are we going to do to fix that problem?
Yeah.
And this is a grassroots effort to do
Yeah,
that.
it is. It's very grassroots.
And what's the deadline for submitting the petition?
So May
For the Secretary of State?
15th, the drop dead legal one is in early July. Yeah. So if you're considering taking a petition today, I'm not looking for you to knock on a bunch of doors. I mean, you can, but it's not very effective. Go to events. If you're going to have a book club meeting, or you're going to go to your church or Cub Scouts or anything like that, if it's going to be a relatively friendly crowd, that's the best place to go and get signatures. You can knock on doors, feel free, but if you can think of places you're going to be in the next couple weeks or a couple months, really, that you can just jam on a bunch of signatures all at once, that would be the best way to do it. So again, I would probably give you 2. They each have 40 signatures, just so that you can send that one back by May 15th. Notarized, please, and then take your other one and keep continuing. And so if you do take one, I have a sign-up right here. Not a very sophisticated sign-up, but just put your name, email, phone, and the petition number that you take, numbers, plural, that you take, which is just in the bottom middle of that number right there is going to be your petition number. Go ahead and write that on here for me, and then we will get you into our database, and then I will be able to communicate with you with email and just check on you and see what you need and that kind of thing. Again, my name is Sarah Myers, and I have my Indivisible name tag actually. Are there any other questions? It's 5:33.
Do you know how many circulators you already have? How many people with that petition?
So I don't exactly, because I came onto the position only about a month ago because someone else had an illness, so I took over for her. I don't know, but the Boulder Valley Education Association gave out a lot of them, so, but I don't know, I wish I did, I don't know exactly.
Right, and you earlier said that you thought there were about 4,000 petitions
In the
that were out
state.
in the state.
It might even be 5,000, I think
Yeah.
it's 5,000.
So I vaguely remember, I think that the total number we need to hit is about 100,000 signatures.
96,000,
Yeah,
yeah,
so-
valid, which,
Valid,
that means we want
Valid.
about 150,000.
And if you've got 5,000 of these with 40 on each, then you're talking about 200,000 potential
But the
signatures
distribution
coming
across the
back.
state is,
Right.
And if we get more than we need in the Boulder area, because you know we're a very blue area, they'll still count toward. We need an actual. That 2% doesn't add up to 96,000. If you know what I mean, the 2% in every district doesn't add up to 96,000, and we need more. So extra people in the Boulder area would still help. All right, thank you very much for your time today. I appreciate it.